Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is part 2 of my interview with a scientist series. So if you have not seen the first video yet, which we tackled on training, go watch that now. I'm gonna put the link in the description. Today we're gonna talk about nutrition. We're going to divide it into 3 parts. So it would be for gaining or bulking, cutting or contest preparation, and just health in general and wellness. So let's start with bulking. So good to see you again. So thank you for coming back to my little show.
Yeah, in the same area.
Yeah. But different room. Okay, can you please tell me about your experience with bulking or gaining phase in general?
Ever since, I never thought of bulking as eating a lot. Because I used to be, yes, back then I was obese, so when I dropped my body fat to a low percentage, then when I decided to bulk up, I always gradually increase, not calories, but increase my food intake. Because I was afraid of getting fat, which is normal. I mean, so who would want to like get back to their old self? So, in my experience, it's always a slow gain, and make sure it's lean muscles that we are gaining all throughout. So, that's what I think. So, it will never come that we'll eat as much as we can, but no, there are cases that we will, because of course, especially when you've been dieting, you're gonna crave a lot of things. Especially if you've been through a diet wherein you're very strict with what you eat. So cravings is gonna come in, especially after you've dieted for a show or anything else. Okay, so.
Right. It's nice that you pointed out about gradually increasing in weight, or what we call clean bulking. But yeah, because I have some questions about that later on. But first, I'm going to ask you, what are your thoughts about dirty bulking? Before you continue, can you please define what dirty bulking is?
Well, dirty bulking is like eating anything, almost anything, just as long as you put yourself in a caloric surplus. But then you're not eating food that's maintaining your body in a healthy way. I mean, you're not observing your cholesterol levels and everything else. You don't care that your triglycerides is going to go up a lot. So health-wise, it's not smart, of course. So that's how dirty bulking is. And it's general. Some may prefer that route because you have the privilege. You can almost eat anything. But then again, if you think about like performance in your workouts and all, there are times that when you're doing dirty bulking, you're not gonna perform the same way as you are cutting. It's because you're not eating for function. You're eating just for the heck of your brain dopamine, or those senses, those happy hormones, what you call.
Yes, because I have tried dirty bulking a couple of times. Personally, it's very enjoyable because, as we all know, I really love food, I really love eating. And the problem that I have with that, though, is that the longer I go on a dirty bulk, it seems that I'm just putting on more fat and not really solid muscle. And when it's time to diet down, I think I also lose a lot of muscle. But I want to listen to your perspective. Like, what do you think? Is it worth it to gain a lot of pounds and muscle and
during the bulk?
So yeah, during the bulk, do you think you are able to gain more mass compared if you just slowly gain through clean bulking? What do you think?
Well, there is a chance that you can gain more if there's a lot of supplements that can aid with the muscle gaining process. But otherwise, if you train, if there's none of those supplements, then it's gonna be like you're gonna gain more fat along more than the muscle. I mean, like you said, when you're gonna diet down, you're gonna lose some of the hard gained muscle again. That's how it is. And if you think about it, if you're bulking, you're gonna get stronger because your weight goes up. So it's normal. So when your weight goes up, there's a lot of things that's happening. Aside from you're gaining a bit of muscle during the bulk, you're also like lowering the range of motion. Some may say it's not gonna affect, but yes, it will. But hello. Okay. But yes, it's gonna limit some of the range of motion. Like, for example, if you're gonna do a squat, if your belly is gonna stick out a lot more, of course, there's gonna be a cushion. You can bounce off the weight off your legs because of your stomach protruding. And the same way with some of the presses, if you're gonna do a bench press, yeah, there's gonna be something that's because there's some fat, a layer of fat, so there's a bit of lowering the range of motion, aside from getting stronger. Though it's still part of the process, but you don't need that much fat to like bulk up, like gain lean muscle. I mean, there is a certain fat percentage that you can gain the most muscle, which is like you have to find the healthy range about either 8 to 12, or some may prefer 12 to 15. Because this is going to differ from one person to another. Because let's say, for example, an endomorph, when you talk about somatotypes, there's the endomorphic, and there's the endomorph, there's the ectomorphs, and the mesomorphs. And usually with these somatotypes, people are somewhat always in between. It's like an endomorphic mesomorph and those things. And then when it's an endomorph, most of the time when they try to gain this much, most of it is fat, and they are not comfortable performing on the lower fat ranges, especially when you're, let's say, 8% body fat. When they're gonna like work out and all, they're gonna feel lethargic and slow because they'll feel tired. Normally, we feel tired of those low body fat percentage. Those who are ectomorphs are more comfortable moving on a lower body fat rather than having a very high body fat, because they're gonna feel slower when they're maintaining around 12 to 15%. So it's gonna differ from one person to another.
Okay, thank you. I have a question from Miss Luis Tunis. For those of you who do not know, she's a good friend of mine, and she is currently the reigning Miss Bikini Philippines 2019.
Oh, congratulations, by the way.
Yes, and she's also a YouTube blogger. You can check out her YouTube channel. I'm gonna put the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe. She has good content when it comes to studying, workouts, and just fun in general. Okay, so her question is, how to clean bulk or lean bulk?
Okay, so how to do lean bulking or clean bulking? Okay, so it's actually just the same way as you're cutting, but you're eating more of it. If you're eating rice during your cutting phase, you're gonna eat more, a bit more, not exactly a lot more. Okay, so that's where we come to like counting how much calories we take in per day. Because if we count our, let's say, basal metabolic rate, then that's how we put something that we'll have a basis where we should start, where we can maintain our weight, how much calories we need if we lose, and how much calories we need to increase if we need to gain. So though you may see a lot of formulas, or one of it is Harris-Benedict equation, but then most of us would prefer like an easier way to count this calories. Okay, so I may have to specific my way of counting the caloric intake for, let's say, for basal metabolic rate. So my way is like your weight in pounds multiplied by 10. Simply like that. You can say that it's a lot easier than the usual. And it's not counting the age, it's not counting the, what else, your height, right? So I already tried this. I did my math on different ages. I tried this. I tried computing for the same using the Harris-Benedict equation, and it all have close differences. And 100 or 200 calories may be a lot, but it's not that much. When you say age, let's say from 30 to 31 to 32, every age gap, there's just a 5-calorie difference, which is not much. Okay, so that's where I came up with that simple body weight in pounds multiplied by 10. And then it's gonna differ, like for example, if you're an active individual, depending on how much you work out, it's gonna be like, instead of 10, you're gonna multiply it by 11, 12, until up to 15. Okay, 15 will be most active. And I did the math, like for example, like how I do my cardio lately.
Just a moment, I'm gonna cut you for a bit.
Yes.
The numbers that you're talking about, is it for maintenance or is it for, what is it for? Like when you said for the very active people, they should multiply it by 15. Is that for?
Oh, or either for gaining or losing?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. When you're gaining, or let's say lean bulking, it doesn't mean, like I said before, that we're not gonna go ahead too much of our calories. So we're not gonna jump in with 500 calories more, 800 calories more. No, because all these equations, they're just estimates. None of it is like accurate, very accurate. So more like you're having a guesstimate on where you should be. If that, like how I always coach, I always tell everyone that we have to find how much calories where you need to maintain, where you can maintain your weight. Once we get that, that will be our basis. And they're gonna say like, how am I gonna know this? You can start by having trying a formula like that, Harris-Benedict or my way. Okay, so once you have that, give it a shot. If that caloric intake will keep you at the same weight, then that's going to be your maintenance. Like I said, so this is not going to be accurate. So once you find that particular amount of calories that will keep you at maintenance, then you're just going to bump it up 200 or 300 calories more. You don't need to go a lot. That's it.
Alright, so question from the same person.
Yes.
How to accurately calculate required calories? I think you've already explained some of that, though not that accurate, but
yes,
it gives you like a pretty good picture of what you're supposed to do. And macronutrients. So what are your personal recommendations for macronutrient ratios, or like how many grams of protein do you need per day, how many carbs or fats per day? Can you explain?
Okay, so when you say, when we think about macronutrients for our caloric intake, normally it's going to be 0.6 to 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. But then some may prefer the other approach where it's in pounds rather than kilograms. But either way, it's going to work as long as you have protein, enough or sufficient protein to keep a positive nitrogen balance in your body. You will notice this, if like when you eat that amount of protein on that day, your muscles are gonna be fuller, and it's like when you do your workouts, you'll feel the pump more than a lower protein intake. That's how it is. So it's not gonna be a specific number because everyone's different, like I said. So you may want to try those numbers. You're gonna play around with it, but you can try those estimates again, 0.6 to 0.8. But then again, there's a lot of factors to to think of. Like for example, if your muscles is very matured, positive nitrogen balance can be achieved even by 0.4 or less.
Really?
Yes.
That's very
Interesting.
that's very interesting. Okay, because okay, let's say I take the higher range, which is the 0.8 per kilogram
Yes.
of my body weight, right? Right now I'm around 84 kilos, so probably around maybe 75. I'm not good with math,
Yeah.
but let's say 75 grams of protein. That's all I need for a day, because we've been in the bodybuilding circle for
Yes.
years now, and we've you know, we see these guys, they're eating like 200 grams of protein, some even upwards of 300, depending on how big they are.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's because when you're trying to bulk up or gain, you need protein to repair the muscle. That's true. You need it for positive nitrogen balance. But then again, it's about calories. If you consume enough calories, you're gonna still build muscle. Okay, so it doesn't mean if you have a lot of protein, like for example 210 or those big numbers of protein, it doesn't mean that you're gonna build more muscle. No, it's not, because it's more or less gonna refer to your training. Okay, so if your training is not improving, whether it's reps, sets, the weight, the volume, then more or less you're not gonna gain that much muscle. You're just maintaining. Okay, so
Because that has always been my perception, that in order for you to build muscle, you really have to eat a lot of protein.
Oh.
That was what was always in my head, that if I'm not eating enough, then I might even catabolize my muscle. All right, so we've already touched on the protein. Okay, let's move on to fats. What are your recommendations for fats when you're trying to gain?
okay, so are we talking about the ketogenic diet or a normal diet, like how bodybuilders?
Let's. All right, let's do it like this.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask for your personal diet. Like how much fat you put into your food, and we may also do. You can also explain on how the typical bodybuilder's diet is structured, like the ratios, and you can also talk about ketogenic if you want. So let's start with your personal diet first. Can you share it to us, especially the gaining type of diet?
Okay, so when it comes to like the fat intake, we keep it. Usually, I keep it low because most of the activities or the workouts I do has the need for sudden bursts of energy, which will need more carbohydrates than fat. Fat can give you a steady release of energy, which is really good, especially like you're doing endurance and all. And when you say, let's say, specific heavy weights, then just a few reps to gain strength. And when like the previous video, I always recommend that when you're training for strength, it would be best to have a caloric surplus, and at the same time that you'll need more carbohydrates if you're training for strength. Okay, so there are times that, for example, that will be tackled in the cutting phase when you're dropping calories, because there are times that when you switch to a ketogenic diet, since you're going to have more steady energy compared to a diet that has rich in carbohydrates, that's why most people would switch to a higher rep range rather than a low rep range and heavier weight. That's how it is. Okay, so, and anyway, so let's head back to bulking. Okay, so with my diet, my approach is I keep the fat about 40, 50, 60 grams of fat. I don't really go up high. I only go up high there if I really need to cheat in the diet. But yeah, but normally I keep it low because I want to eat more, and at the same time I need the carbohydrates to fuel my workouts, especially those sprinting, boxing and all. So most of it is, and because more or less your food intake is gonna refer to the activities or your sports, the workouts you're doing. Okay, so there's no specific thing unless you know what. Yeah, of course, we know what we're doing. Since it's bodybuilding, then you're gonna have a relatively like almost about close to balance. So you can raise your fat to 80 grams if you wish, because either way, this is just going to fuel your workouts. And some of it is going to be used for hormonal function. Okay, so, and with less, there are also a couple of mistakes with having zero fats during their diet, because this is going to harm your joints. Because fats is going to help lubricate the joints and also, hormonal function. That's the main thing of fats. Okay, so when you say ketogenic diet too, make sure that you'll be in ketosis and do not go on and off. Because when you go on and off, then you're gonna put a lot of stress to your body. Okay, so remember, it's a lifestyle. So by the time you're off, it's extra stress. You can, how do you say, why could I say that it's stress? You can tell by having the keto flu. It's the same reason when your body is at an emergency response, like when you get sick, like your immune system goes low. So that's because your body is at an intense stress. So it's best to keep it on, keep your diet straight on. If you're on a ketogenic diet, then keep it keto. Don't stay away from keto, because just stay keto all throughout. And you can raise your fat intake according to your calories. So if you're going on a caloric surplus, then you're gonna bump up your fat a bit. Okay, so a bit, not too much. Okay, so you're gonna basically just try to improve your workouts. That's your focus. So, but you'll need a lot of calories, but not as much as you think. Okay, people are sometimes like overestimating, like, I need this for my workout, so I have to eat a lot more. Then what happens is you're gonna get fat. Okay.
Okay, nice that you brought it up, because I have some other questions in my head. But first, let's continue with the ketogenic diet. The ketogenic diet, if you guys don't know yet, is a very high fat diet and almost, very low to zero carbs.
Yeah.
So it is popular during the cutting phases, usually, because it's easier to control your calories because it is very satiating. But in the bodybuilding circles, it is also popular because there's what we call the targeted ketogenic and the cyclical ketogenic diet, where there is a scheduled intake of carbohydrates to replenish the glycogen stores and improve performance. So what are your thoughts on that? Because earlier you said that it is best to, if you're going to stay on a ketogenic diet, try not to go in and out. But if you follow these approaches, you get kicked out, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So what can you say about that?
The thing is, when you're on a ketogenic diet, and remember, if you're doing targeted keto, okay, so when you're doing targeted keto, that's like 50 grams of carbohydrates before your workouts only. Okay, so it's like that. So it's like strategically adding carbs. And remember, if you're already fat adapted, once you just add that much carbs and not as much that can disrupt you in ketosis, then of course it's just gonna help, because it's just gonna fill up your glycogen stores. Okay, so once your glycogen stores are full, then but not the same full as those who are in a carbohydrate-rich diet. So it's gonna fill up your glycogen stores, and then you'll be able to do the burst of energy. Okay, but then still after that, it means that you can only do the burst of energy on the first part of your workout. If you think about it, right? Since there's not much glycogen stored. Okay, so though the body can still produce its own glycogen, yes, but then the same way, it's not going to be the same as a high carbohydrate diet. So and again, let's go back to the ketogenic diet. Okay, so it's going to put a lot of stress, but then again, it's not the same stress since you're not off ketosis, because you're directly using those carbohydrates for the workout. Okay, so but when you say cyclical, you're having these carbohydrates on the cheat day on the week. So that's how most bodybuilders do it. uh, they are going to be stressed out. Okay, so you can tell that most of them who's doing this bulk up. Yeah, so though not bulk up that they gain a lot of fat, you can tell that they're gaining a lot of water.
Yes.
Yes, so when your body is on a stress state, it will hold water because it wants to recover. That's how it is. Okay, so but then again, either way works. Okay, so keto or not keto, it's the same thing, just as long as your training progresses with the right diet and you're comfortable doing it.
Alright, so enough with the ketogenic diet. Let's go to the more popular bodybuilders diet, or like the rice and chicken with the broccoli. What are your recommendations for that, especially with the carbohydrates and protein?
Okay, so normally, like, the ratio they have is usually 30. I think it was a 40-40-20 or 30-30-40. It's like somewhat like that, around close to those ranges. But then I don't believe on having these ratios, because it's gonna differ from one person to another, like I said. So it's gonna, like, you're gonna adjust these macronutrients according to your needs, like your workouts. Okay, so like for example, you're gonna have more repetitions, or let's say like that. So you're gonna increase your fat intake a bit rather than the carbohydrates. If you're gonna have like a heavy lift day, like heavy day, legs, let's say deadlifts, those heavy training, so you're gonna bump up your carbs more than your fat intake. So that is why it's best to have a good relationship with your, and not just good communications with your coach, because they're gonna like tell you that we're gonna have heavy training tomorrow, so you're gonna like immediately, okay, I need to adjust. So you should ask your coach, should I adjust my carbohydrates? Then of course he's gonna reply with yes, because of course your caloric intake is gonna be your caloric intake and your macronutrients is gonna reflect on what you should do in your workout. So it should like balance things out. Okay, so otherwise you're not gonna perform the same way, like you should, like how you should. Okay, so that's how it is. So if like I said, like if you're doing a usual bodybuilder's program, 8 to 12 reps, like relatively 10 to 15 reps on the particular set, then you're gonna have more like some carbohydrates and of course some fat. So like I said, so it's like, for example, let's say a 150-pound person. Okay, let's have that as an example. Okay, so he's gonna have around 120 to 100 grams of protein, and maybe the carbohydrates of, let's say, because he's going heavy today, so he will have around 200 to 250 grams of carbohydrates while having 40 to 50 grams of fat, somewhat like that. Okay, so otherwise, if he's gonna switch, like we're going to go, the coach is gonna say that we're going more reps, less on the weight, more volume. So you're gonna reduce the amount of carbohydrates. So you're gonna decrease to around 150 grams or maybe 100 grams. It's gonna depend, because of course there's still gonna be some explosive movements during the workout. So you're gonna still put into carbs and then increase your fat intake from 50 to 80 or 90. That's how it is. Like, you have to move the macros, adjust. That's how coaches should do. That's why it's always recommended you have a good coach that can adjust your macronutrients according to your workouts.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, another question. What are your thoughts on meal frequency? How often should a person trying to gain mass, how often should they eat in a day? How many meals is optimal for muscle growth?
Okay. So it's gonna depend on the person, like I said. Okay, so if a person is more optimal if he eats about 2 meals or 1 meal for those who are doing fasting, and some were eating 3 or 4 times a day or 5 times. It's gonna depend. Okay, so as long as you meet your caloric requirements, that's how it is. Okay, so it won't matter. These won't matter. But then again, the reason why people also do the fasting, because it's easier to control your blood sugar from dropping and increasing if you eat only once, compared to a meal frequency of a lot, where not everyone can do a meal preparation.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's how it is. So either way, it's gonna work. Okay, so as long as you meet your caloric requirements, and of course maybe your macronutrients.
Okay. All right. So I'm pretty sure you're aware that there are some hormonal advantages when you do fasted workouts, right? Like increased human growth hormone production and all those stuff. But do you think when you are on a gaining phase, you should do a fasted workout?
It's gonna depend on the person, but then again, there are some advantages, but then again, because of those advantages, there's also a disadvantage. Okay, so like for example, you don't have the protein to repair the muscles, because during that time where you're fasting, okay, so your growth hormone may increase, but then what is growth hormone without the building blocks? Okay, so that's how it is. It's the same thing. Your body is still waiting for the protein for your meals to come in before it starts repairing. Okay, so it will have almost the same effect, because though it may increase around 1,000% if you're, let's say, 24 hours, right? Was it? If you're fasted that long, then yeah, you will have an increase of growth hormone release. But then again, no protein, then there's also gonna be less work on the muscles. So less repair on the muscles, because you're gonna need protein for that, or some calories. Okay, so and when it comes to training, some may experience better energy during the fasted workouts. Some may have a decrease of energy. It's gonna depend again. Okay, so some may feel that because their blood sugar levels are stable. That's the time that they feel more energy, compared to like when there are some who has problems with their blood sugars. When there's an energy spike, of course there's going to be a sudden drop. So that's why some may prefer fasted. And there are also times that people will think that fasted, when they're training fasted, they have more energy. They thought it's because they're using fat, but it isn't. It's because when they were fasting, before they fasted, they ate a lot. Okay, so the body is still digesting that food. Okay, so the food is still there. And then during the fast, when it has been digested, it has been broken down into energy, and that's the time when they were fasted, it's been used to fuel their workouts. So it's not really burning the fat, but rather burning the dietary food, the food you intake when you were feeding. That's how it is. Okay, so that's one thing that people didn't see during their fasted workouts.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the anabolic window. Can you give its definition, and do you think it does exist? Do you think that we should take advantage of it, or it's okay to go past that window? You know, like they say it's 30 minutes to an hour. What are your thoughts on the anabolic window?
There is, this is related to the blood sugar, your insulin, but then again, it's not, though some may believe this, but in my opinion, it's not something that you really need to follow. Okay, so as long as you reach your caloric requirements, your macronutrients, you're still going to gain muscle. The advantages of having that anabolic window is just a small percentage, and it's not that much. Okay, so and let's say you're taking advantage of that window, so that's 20 grams. let's say having a post-workout shake, that's 20 grams of protein, and at the same time, that amount of protein is not necessarily going to gain into muscle, because again, you're still going to base it for your entire day's requirements. So yeah, it's going to have a bit of difference, but not as much.
Okay, because most of the people who practice bodybuilding, during the anabolic window, they consume a fast-acting protein like
Yes,
whey
whey protein.
isolate, and they also take fast-digesting carbohydrates as well, like simple sugars.
Yes.
Do you think that is necessary?
No, you don't need it. But then again, if your blood sugar drops, then you may need it. Okay, so it's gonna like I said, we want, as much as possible, we want to maintain our blood sugar levels stable, never to have those sudden spikes or sudden drops. During your workout, it's gonna spike up a bit, and it's gonna have a drop. During the drop, it's gonna be best to have a meal just to like keep it on the stable line. That's how it is.
Okay, because their logic or the reason that they need to ingest the simple carbs is one is to replenish the depleted glycogen stores, but at the same time to increase insulin, because they we know that insulin is an anabolic hormone, right? That
Yes.
helps with muscle growth. But in my opinion, I think that when you ingest like a fast-acting protein like whey isolate, it already does spike insulin as well,
Yes,
right?
that's correct. That's correct.
Okay, so I was just asking about your opinion. All right, next question. What are your thoughts on intra-workout, like supplementation? Like some people, they consume some simple carbs during their workouts. I personally, I'm asking you this right now because last night during my workout, I was drinking Gatorade. The one with the sugar.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, what are your thoughts on intra-workout carbohydrates?
It's gonna like I said, if you're doing a long workout, prolonged workout, you're gonna need something to like again keep your blood sugar levels stable, because you're gonna feel like drained and you don't want to like move anymore if once that starts to drop. And they call it laziness, but not all the times it's laziness. There are times that you really feel tired because of the blood sugar dropping. So with that intra workout, let's say if a person is working out for 2 hours, athletes like you, then when it drops, then you may need it. Okay, so it doesn't have to be like if you're doing a short workout, you don't need it. So it's gonna depend on your workout. If you're gonna have an intra workout, make sure it's gonna be long and hard. If not, then take it off.
Okay, alright. And last question. What are your thoughts on eating or drinking whey first thing in the morning and drinking maybe casein or any meal before bedtime? What do you think are the optimal timings for that? Should you really eat first thing in the morning, or can you answer that?
Well, first thing in the morning, it's because you've been fasted, so you're sleeping, you haven't eaten anything, so during sleep, your growth hormone spikes up. Okay, so the same reason with fasting, right? When we're fasting, your growth hormone spikes up. So when this spikes up, then they're waiting for materials to help build the muscle or repair the muscle. So when you have this protein, like first thing in the morning, it's possibly gonna gain more muscle than just have it like not the fast-acting way, right? Let's have like an ordinary like steak or some slow digesting protein. So it's gonna be absorbed really fast. The same reason where doctors would prescribe medications or some supplements like first to drink this first thing in the morning because it's easily absorbed. That's how it is. Okay, so when you're fasted, everything is absorbed faster. Okay, so just rely to the same logic with fasting. It's the same thing.
Okay. What about for
The nighttime.
Yeah.
Okay. So the nighttime protein. The problem with nighttime protein is, then again, it's going to like keep you in a fed state during your fasting where you sleep. Okay. So though it's gonna give you some protein during your sleep, and then when you wake up, of course, you're not gonna have the same ability to absorb enough protein on the morning, if that's how it is. So you may like leave that out on the evening,
Right.
so that you can have it on the morning. But either way, it's best to have one or the other, either one in the evening or one in the morning. That's how it is.
All right. Okay, so those are really helpful tips. Thank you for that. The scientist has already answered most of my questions. If you have any other questions relating to bulking or gaining, please comment in the comment section below, so that for the next episode, before we start our talk on the cutting, we can answer those questions for the that you have for bulking. Right? So it was nice that you came for this session.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
And again, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the bell button. See you on the next one. Thank you, guys. Alright, by the way, Mr. Stanley has something to add. During our break, he told me that he forgot that there were some additional
With the formula.
and the formula for the calories. Can
so-
you?
Yeah, so when counting your basal metabolic rate, I said about multiplying it by 10. Then it depends on your activities. You can increase it to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, depending on how active your lifestyle is. Then after that, it's going to depend whether it's male or female. So from male, you may need to add 450 or, let's say 450 as a median instead of 400 to 500, because one thing that I didn't state a while ago is that we have to compute for the calories needed for brain function, and that's the amount, which is 400 to 500 for male and around 250 to 350 for female. Okay, so some may say it's 300, but then we'll have the median of 300 then. Okay, so for male, your total from body weight in pounds multiplied by 10, or depending on your activities up to 15, plus 400. When it's female, then the same thing, but add 300. That's how it is.
And this is for the gaining or the lean bulking phase, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just one more question before we we go.
I mean, I did say about the activity, so yeah.
Okay. We are talking about the basal metabolic rate, right? Or the calories that you need.
Yes.
Some they have formulas for your own weight, right?
Yes.
Like in pounds or in kilograms, but there are also formulas that I've seen in the internet that, and also from coaches, that they use instead the lean body mass.
Yeah, lean
And
body mass.
that's the value that they use for the formula. What are your thoughts on that? Is it really necessary, or should we just stick to the more simpler, just using the own body weight format?
Well, in my opinion, you're gonna use the lean body mass if you're cutting,
Okay.
right? So I mean, if you're gonna compute for the lean body mass, it's gonna be lower. So it's gonna be best for cutting. When you say trying to bulk up, you're gonna focus on your weight, because of course you're computing for the calories and you want to be at a caloric surplus. That's how it is.
Right. Okay. One last question.
Additional.
Okay. If you're trying to gain muscle, is it okay to start directly on a gaining phase, or do you have to drop down to a desired body fat percentage to start gaining, or is it okay to start even if you're relatively fat? No, maybe probably in the 20% for guys. Do you think it's okay, or should you go down to maybe 15% body fat? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the best way is to drop body fat up to ranges that are more like productive, where your hormones are better in production of muscle, which will depend again on whether it's a endomorph or an ectomorph. So for endomorphs, you can drop it to 12 to 15%. Ectomorphs probably lower, and for females, drop it to around 22 to 25%. It should be healthy enough for bulking or cutting, or no, not cutting. I'm sorry, just bulking.
All right, thank you for answering my questions. See you again on the next episode. See you.